Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Great to be with you on the show today, and I'll be with you the rest of the week because no quarterback club tomorrow.
Oh, very nice. You look a little more. The sun got to you a little bit, I think, in a good way, in a golden manner.
Well, it's because I played golf yesterday afternoon. After I went to basketball practice, and then I went out and was able, between the wind and the sun, I got like 7 holes in or something like that.
Well,
but I just wanted to get out and swing a little bit.
You also were in a very sunny state for a couple days.
I was.
So that probably helps.
I was. Look, it's interesting. We all know how the 94 team finished up. And they were just honored at the Illinois game for 30 years. And if there is a signature moment for that team, it was the 96-yard drive at Illinois. Penn State's down in this game, and it's interesting how it played out because Penn State at one point is down 17-3. Penn State outscored USC 30-13 the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Just like in that game, Penn State was down 21-0 and actually outscored Illinois, 35 to 10 the rest of the way. In other words, in each game, once Penn State got going in a lot of ways. So when you look at it, it's not the start because Penn State's opening drive, they score a touchdown, but it's taken off the board because of a penalty. And so they get a field goal. So they started fine. And remember, USC got the ball first, and they punted. But then after that, USC, they hit the 75-yard play right away. And when you look at the numbers USC put up in the game offensively, 2 plays really made up for a lot of what they did. The 75-yard play where Penn State just completely over-pursues to one side. And you can see when it's coming back. Because I can see the entire field. You're like, oh, mother.
Yeah. Well, they show the broadcast. It was all of a sudden, it was 9 of the Penn State players went for branch.
Right.
And then no one went to cover. It was a Joyner on the backside. And all of a sudden, he just didn't pitch it to branch and just kept it. And you see just green grass in front of him for 60-plus yards. You're like, oh, that's game over.
The other one was Woody Marks on what was going to be a throwback to Miller Moss. It was a trick play, and Penn State had it covered. And he improvised for 28 yards. So that's 103 of their yards on those 2 plays, one that was just well-conceived, smart, and got Penn State out of position. And from there, that's all on them. And Mark's just on pure improvisation getting the job done. But that's 103 of their yards on those 2 plays, which, by the way, each one led to a touchdown in the game.
And they came back-to-back. It was just rapid-fire touchdown after touchdown. And then all of a sudden, they were up 2 scores.
Yeah, and that's the way it played out in this game. When you look at what Penn State did, let's just take it through all 3 phases. We'll start with defense. I'll save the offense for last. On defense, they did get a handle on Marks in the second half.
Yeah.
I mean, which was a big difference in this game. They had a pretty good handle on Miller Moss most of the game. And the interception by Jalen Reed at the end was a huge play in this game. In fact, to be honest with you, if that guy doesn't trip him up, right around midfield, he actually probably could have gone. He had a shot at going all the way. He had an opportunity. Abdul Carter came up big, played a great game. Denai Dennis Sutton played a great game.
Jason and I were discussing it as the game was going on because we were watching it. We had our watch party here in Happy Valley at the field, and we were watching it together. And as I think it was one of the plays in the 4th quarter, he comes up and sacks Moss or does something disruptive.
Right.
And it was just like, oh, there's Denai Dennis Sutton. And then in the overtime, he had the tackle for loss to start it off. And it was like, oh, well, that's something.
Well, again, that was what happened was Penn State started getting a better handle on first down.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got a handle on first down, it changed the dynamics of the game because that got USC off schedule. And when USC was off schedule, it was a problem. Remember, USC came into the game 52% on third down.
Mm-hmm.
They were 2 of 11.
Yeah. They didn't get their first one until I think the third or fourth quarter.
They were 2 of 11. In fact, it was the fourth quarter because they didn't get a first down in the third quarter.
Yeah. So it was the fourth quarter is their first. They were 0 for 5, I think, up till then.
Right. So they did all that. Once they got a handle on what they were doing in the game, Penn State defensively, I think, played really well. And I thought Zion Tracy, by the way, had himself a really good game.
He made some incredible breakups. He played really, really well. He showed what he can do across the board defensively in a way that I don't think we've really seen him play so far. This is probably his best game as an Nittany Lion, where you saw him show up in a big manner. He was getting targeted across the board, and he did not let up.
And Reed, by the way, played a tremendous game. I thought Kobe King was really good. Now let's get to special teams. Look,
my favorite part.
On special teams, Riley Thompson had his best game of the season punting the ball. He changed field position, and they really negated, to me, one of the truly dynamic return men in the country in Zachariah Branch.
You were waiting for him to rip something off, and he never did the entire game.
And Gabe Wosu did a great job of negating Zachariah Branch, along with the coverage on the one.
Can we discuss the Gabe Wosu touchback that landed at the 3 and then rolled in just alongside the out-of-bounds line? The heart attack that it gave every Penn State fan in the field was extraordinary. But I said it was a coffin corner kickoff. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It was...
you don't seem as pleased as I am, Steve.
It just kind of seemed like it was a wedge into the green. But
he did his job.
And then, of course, Ryan Barker. But it's more than just Barker, because I brought up in the postgame with Ryan about what it meant to have the dependability of Tyler Dzansky and Riley Thompson, because the snap is right on the money. The hold is exactly what he needs. And the setup was there. So let's talk about the setup for a moment. Penn State works on a variety of things during the course of the week, right, to be prepared for whatever. But when they get to their Friday practice, one of the things that James makes sure that they do in that is a late game with an opportunity to kick a field goal. And part of that is plays, and then centering the ball. Centering the ball. Well, they get in overtime. Lance has now missed the field goal again because USC's pushed back because of the denied Dennis Sutton play, and they're off schedule. They get nothing. So they work on this. This is so for Drew, he's had 19 starts now in his career. Well, in the 19 starts, he's gone through this drill how many times now during the course as to how to handle it. And he handled it exactly the way James wants you to practice it, except on this one, he actually gained some yardage because it was open. But he made sure he was in the center of the field. In other words, Drew was completely in control. The game was slow to him on Saturday. He's like, okay, I'm in the center of the field. I can keep going. Okay, now I'm going to go. Okay, now I'll get down. I'm not going to take a hit.
Well, he hit the center of the field and just stayed in a straight line like he was walking a tightrope and said, I'm not leaving this path.
Because he knew exactly where he needed to be for his kicker. I go back to the opening game of the season when Minnesota played North Carolina. North Carolina's winning. Minnesota has a chance to win the game, and instead of centering the ball, they put the ball on the hash mark, and their left-footed kicker belted it wide right. If it had been centered, he actually would have made the kick. Well, Penn State centered the ball, And that allowed Ryan Barker to have, I think as I phrased it on the broadcast, the upright staring him right in the face. Boom.
There's no angle, no deathing, just hit it straight down the middle.
And so, and he did, and he hit 4 field goals in the game. And each one of them was calm, cool, collected. The operation gives you a lot of confidence because Tyler Duzansky is an excellent snapper. Riley Thompson is an excellent holder. And it's just, I think it's calming for any kicker to have that kind of operation and blocking up front. The offense, USC stacking the box like UCLA did because they wanted to negate the Penn State running game as much as possible.
Which they did.
Let's make Drew Aller beat us. Well, you lost. Drew Aller beat you.
He did.
He threw for a career-high 391 yards.
And as the game was going, I pulled it up on my phone. I think it was when Warren had 9 catches for like 110 the first half, whatever that number was, 98 yards, I think.
Yeah.
I pulled it up and showed Jason. I said, he's going to get the record for catches, and he's going to get close to yards. And he broke the record for catches in the second half. He got 17 on the day and 224 yards in the air, second most all time. I don't remember ever seeing someone dominate the field as much as him, and I don't think I've ever seen someone snap the ball and catch the ball in the same play.
Yeah, well, okay. Okay, I'll get to that part.
Yeah, we'll get there in a minute. But
I'll get that because it's,
mine is blown.
Okay. All right. No, it's not the first time I've ever seen it tried.
Okay. Okay.
So, Drew, Katron Allen gained some hard, tough yards in the game. Let's not negate the fact that Trey Wallace had 4 big catches in that game, that Amari Evans made a big catch down inside the 5-yard line. And then the touchdown pass that tied the game was to Singleton, and that's the third read. And the other part, too, keep in mind, Drew Aller was not sacked in the game. And that's the third read. You see he looks left, he looks center, and then wide open to Singleton, boom, right on the money. Singleton, just has to catch it out in front and go, and they tie the game up. And again, Singleton's development as a pass receiver cannot be understated. The offensive line played really well in this game. Really well. I mean, they racked up over 500 yards in offense on the road and 33 points. Now, you want to do a better job of. Now, they did knock the one home. I mean, it's. And let's give Julian Fleming a lot of credit.
Oh, my.
Fleming, I want to say Tuesday last week, was the first time since the first week of the preseason where I felt like he had a rough practice. I felt his practices, I think, have been fabulous. I mean, fabulous. And Tuesday was the first time since like the first week of August I was like, geez, okay, I haven't seen that in a while. All right. Well, then, of course, we all know early in the game, he's the one that gets called in the end zone in the Warren play. It's kind of a borderline ticky-tack call, but I'm not,
Yeah.
But you notice I said nothing about the officiating all day in the broadcast.
They were good.
Because Jerry and his crew, or Jerry McGinn, they're really good. I've always said that. In fact, I even said that in the pregame. I said it's a top flight crew with Jerry McGinn. And they called that, okay, and then he dropped the one. And then there was the one downfield where it looked like he wasn't expecting it. Well, now here you are. This is your go for broke drive. Let's give James a lot of credit. James gets a lot of credit for a lot of this. Right? Let's give him a lot of credit. Penn State does have all 3 timeouts.
Yeah.
And if they want to punt, they can. And he says, the heck with this. Right? Let's just go here. Fleming, first down.
On 4th down, by the way.
Second, 4th down. Fleming, again. Notice what Fleming is doing. Fleming is, as a receiver, attacking the football. In other words, it's mine. He's attacking it. And he did it on each one of those catches. Kept the drive alive and set up what proved to be the game-tying touchdown and extra point. And then there's Warren. So now let's get to the Warren part of it. I'll start with the snap play. I think people forget. In fact, I know they forget. Right. that Penn State, he snapped the ball for the 2-point conversion against Michigan last year in the 2-point play.
Oh, okay. I know. I was at a wedding at the time. I was not able to watch the game.
No, there is not a single person that I've said that to that remembered that.
Okay.
Okay. Number one, I think probably because Penn State didn't win the game.
That too.
All right? I mean, that was probably part of it.
Rough memories.
But they ran a 2-point play last year against Michigan where they went shift, snapped the ball, but it was a direct snap to Drew. And then he went out, and actually he got open on the play, but Drew was late getting it there, and it ended up okay. So it's not like the first time he's ever done it in a game.
Yeah.
Okay? Now fast forward. If I remember, Andy put the play in, I don't know, probably some point in the preseason or something like that. And they ran it, and Ben Chismar blew it up. He blew it up because he recognized, hey, wait a minute. Like, okay, we got to do something different here. So Andy went back, and they made a couple subtle changes to it. I'm not going to get into the changes. Okay? They made a couple subtle changes to it. And if you notice when they break the huddle, all right, they line up, and Warren kind of keeps himself low. And then he gets over the ball. And he snaps it back. Penn State shifts, gets it back to Bo, and then Bo makes a nice throw over to Drew. Let's give USC safety credit. He's there. He's there. They're not, he's not fooled by it. No. This is Tyler Warren running down the field. He picked up on it. And Warren is almost like a power forward rebounding in basketball where he got the position and just ripped the thing. As
the kids would say, he mossed him.
Right. And but all day long, he's making plays. Now, why is he making plays? The wide receivers do a great job of clearing out areas for him. He has a great feel for the area he's supposed to be in and how to run a route. And Drew's throwing the ball right where he needs to get the ball. I've had people, why don't they just take him out? You have to find him first. Sometimes he's in the slot. Sometimes he's on the wing. Sometimes he's on the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he's in the backfield. Sometimes he's the quarterback. And, of course, we saw one time he was the center. You have to find him on every play. And one of the keys is that whether he's in the slot or on the wing or in the backfield, it's hard to get a jam on him because he's not up on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And look, 17 catches. I mean, people have asked me, is it the greatest performance I've seen? I said, look, I've seen a lot of great performances in my career, okay? Like great performances. And each one is an entity unto itself. Saquon Barkley at Iowa was one of the truly great performances ever. Larry Johnson had 279 yards rushing in the first half against Michigan State the day he went over 2,000 yards. Like, I've seen great performances, okay? Jordan Hill had 14 tackles in an overtime win over Wisconsin. I mean, there's just a list of, this is among the list of great performances.
This is one you'll remember watching.
Right. It's right there in that tight list of the greatest performances I've seen. In terms of a full game performance. Every one I brought up was a full game performance. And it was just tremendous what he did. But it happened because Drew was protected. It happened because the wide receivers did a great job of clearing out spots for him. It happened because Drew did a fabulous job of delivering the ball. And it happened when play action happened, they respected the Penn State running game, and it froze some people. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But he's a special player. I mean, James has been saying now for weeks that he's the best tight end in the country. Well, on Saturday, he was the best player in the country.
Yeah. He put himself, and I know this is a discussion we're not going to have today, we're going to have later, but as many Penn State fans are saying on social media, he put himself into Heisman territory now, where he is now all of a sudden being talked about as one of the best players in the nation, where previously he wasn't. He's being in the tight end conversation. Now he's put himself into a different class with this performance where he passed the ball 1-for-1 for 9 yards. He ran the ball for 4 yards. He, again, snapped the ball. He caught the ball 17 times, 151 yards after the catch, by the way. That is a big number. And none of his catches was bigger than the touchdown. The 34-yard touchdown was the biggest catch in terms of yardage he had all day. The rest of them were all shorter. They were all 10 to 20 yards, which is what you need your guy like a Warren to be. That is what he is here to do, is that. Those types of games, those types of displays. And this was something I think a lot of Penn State fans have been waiting to see, is the offense really just kind of explode in the passing game. Because we've seen Allen and Singleton put in work week after week. We see them get 100 yards, and we're like, that's what they do every week. Right. I don't think we've really seen Drew just put the ball in the air a lot. And this was the first time a lot of Penn State fans really saw him do it. And yeah, he had 3 interceptions. But at the end of the day, dude threw the lights out. I know.
One was at the end.
One was the end of the game. There was one that was a tip after someone slipped.
And then the other one, I said on the play, as the play's going, I said he throws it into traffic, right? And it was picked off by Arnold.
That one was a bad pass. Yeah. The other two happen, whatever. If you're Drew, you live with it. But this is the first time I really saw him just put the ball in the air like he wanted to, versus just doing it to do it. And that, I think, was something impressive. A lot of Penn State fans. And you saw that Tyler Warren really is, quote-unquote, wide receiver one, because dude was just everywhere.
Well, it's just, I don't get into the
that thing. I think
that whole thing is just like, it's social media, talk show, fantasy world. He's QB1, he's RB1. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's a team game.
Yeah.
Look, what makes him the best tight end is the 17 catches for 224. What makes him the best tight end is he blocks. He is an excellent blocker. Right? What makes him the best all-around tight end is they can do a wide variety of things with him. Right? Because
heck, he can snap the ball.
Right. Well, the first time I ever saw him do that was actually in a bowl practice. It may have been maybe a year ago.
But the fact that you can have him do that, like that is not something most players could probably do.
I mean, I'm talking about he's doing it off to the side. I mean, it was like before practice began. I'm like, Warren's snapping the ball. My first thought is, well, he's trying to probably get himself even more valuable at the next level, because Theo Johnson was the number one tight end.
Yeah.
Right. But he's down to earth, has no attitude. When I went down to Harrisburg, I'm on bus 5, and then we have assignments. Well, then I switch, and when I get to L.A., I'm on bus 4. When I get on bus 4, Tyler's sitting there. He goes, "Hey, Mr. Jones, how you doing, man?" He says, "Welcome to the dregs of society." Right? This is okay. That's right. We had a good laugh about it. It's just because that's just the way he is. He's not. He's not vocal. He's not.
He's him.
He's not. Talk about like not full of himself. He's 180 of that. He's just a great player. But he'll be the first to tell you that hey, what the wideouts did, what Dinkins does, what Allen and Singleton do, what Drew does, what the offensive line. He'll be the first one to tell you about all those guys that make it happen, that make an individual performance stand out above all. Yet it's all the team things that went into it to make an individual performance stand out. He's not going to get involved in the game of where he. He'll let other people do that. He'll let his play do his talking for him, and he'll let others like his head coach do the talking for him. And that's just the way he is.
Which I think can be confirmed. James did a little bit after the game in terms of bigging him up, which I think was really nice to see because
number one, you're in Los Angeles. Okay, that's the LA media you have out there to go with your own media that's there, so that your own media has heard this and seen this before. But you've got the Los Angeles media and the national media there. Okay, national media was probably, for the most part, split between Eugene and Los Angeles. Maybe I'm sure there was some there were plenty in Dallas for Texas, Oklahoma, but. That's where they were. So here was your chance to say, well, you just saw this performance. This is what we see all the time. All right? And so there was more to just telling the Penn State assembled media what they've seen over and over again, except this performance was above and beyond, but also telling the national media, like, hey, look
at this guy.
This is what he does. Now, Andy's done a great job with him in terms of looking at what he can do and saying, okay, let's get this done. Because what Andy told them, and I think he actually told Tyler, Tyler may have said this to us in the post game, was that he's on the opening drive, he said, quote, when we get past the 50, the play is in. That's what he told him.
Be ready for it.
Right. And so, and then, of course, they made the play. And somebody asked me, I think I was on Sirius XM yesterday, and they said, like, do you tell your spotter to specifically find out where he is on every single play? And I said, I don't have a spotter. They're like, what? I said, all the mistakes I make are mine. Right? So, they're all my mistakes, every one of them. There's nobody to blame.
Yeah.
I said, I see it enough in practice. I said, and when they lined up in that way, I thought it was a possibility. I said, because James lets me go, it gives you that deep background so that you're not, quote, surprised when you see it. How about that?
I was going to say, we heard your call after the game. They put it onto when the game was going on, the post game was going on. We heard your call. It was really nice on TV. It's nice to hear that. You got a nice big shout out there from everyone. So that was fun to hear. But yeah, you weren't surprised. You knew you could see it happening. And there's something to be said for the play calling and the fun.
Well, again, and look, and Tom Allen made some good adjustments. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to look at like the play calling and
the offensive side.
Let's face it, Penn State's a fun team to watch.
That's the difference this year.
Penn State's a fun team to watch. And they're a difficult team to prepare for. Great. Everybody line up. Here's the segment where they put the offensive lineman in motion.
Yeah.
Right?
Here's like where 30-51 Vega Ioane is running at a 200-pound cornerback.
It's like, okay, let's work on this play for a little while. Here's the one where the tight end snaps it. Let's take a look at that play.
Someone get our cornerbacks into the weight room, tell them put on 300 pounds of muscle in the span of a day.
Yeah.
But they're just fun to watch. And speaking of other games that went on, because we've talked a little about this one, the other game that, of course, you mentioned that went on a little after the Penn State game up in Eugene, Oregon-Ohio State. Did you catch the end of this game, perchance, or were you guys on the flight?
No, we had TVs.
Okay.
So I watched the vast majority of that game. I'd say from the middle of the second quarter on, we were able to watch that game.
So you got to see the ending, especially with Will Howard, which caught a lot of attention.
Okay. So
last 30 seconds.
First of all, let's start with this part. Look at all the mistakes that Oregon made in the game that cost them points.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, that game reminded me, just in terms of like the mistakes and a team winning in spite of it, was Penn State, Nebraska in 1982. And here's why. People forget, at the end of that game, Kirk Bowman, who's the father of Alan Bowman, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, makes 2 touchdown catches in the game, the only 2 catches of his career. The second one is in the end zone. Penn State wins with 4 seconds to go. Okay. Oh, dramatic. Penn State got the ball at the 35, drove downfield, won the game. Okay. The place goes insane.
Yeah.
Right? Fran makes a fabulous call, Fran Fisher. But if you look back in the game, really think about it, Penn State had 2 touchdowns called back on penalties. Penn State missed 4 field goals. In fact, on the Bowman touchdown, what people forget about because they were so euphoric, Penn State missed the extra point. So they had, and I can't remember if, the one part I can't remember is if missing the touchdowns led to a missed field goal or not. I think 1 did.
Yeah.
So let's just say that's 9.
It's 23 points.
Right?
It's 23 points gone.
23 points. In other words, Penn State dominated the game, right?
Yeah.
Well, you watch the Oregon game, right? And they're kicking problems early. Now, I didn't see the missed extra point because we were still either at the stadium, leaving the stadium,
Transit
going to the airport,
somewhere.
whatever. Okay, so I didn't see that part. And then I guess they win for 2 because they were trying to, I think, make up for it. Although Dan Lanning goes for 2 a lot.
Yeah.
But I think they were trying to make up for the missed extra point. Now they're starting to chase points. And you look at I think they went for it on fourth down, didn't get it. Oregon at the 1 yard line or something like that, which by the way, I would have gone for it too.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to.
I would have gone for that. So I'm not being in any way, shape, or form critical of Dan Lanning, but Oregon could have had 40, could have 45 points in the game.
Yeah.
They could have 45 points. They're fast. I mean, they are fast. I mean, Tez Johnson, leaves a vapor trail. I mean, ooh. And then now let's get to the decision-making of Will Howard at the end.
So before we get to the decision itself, the 12 men on the field, Lanning today is stating that he did it intentionally.
Okay.
How much do you buy that? Because I don't think anyone would intentionally put 12 men on the field to then make it so the quarterback wouldn't know the clock is going to start running immediately upon the next play beginning. Like,
well,
that seems too far-fetched for me. That seems like it's too much of a gains. Like, you'd have to be smarter than Bill Belichick to know that's exactly what's going to happen.
First of all, it's in the heat of the moment. Would any of us be surprised there's 12 men on the field? Because they're running out all these different packages all the time. Why do I want to? What happens if I intercept the ball? And they get an extra play. Let's not pretend it's ingenious. What if he fumbles the ball?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, the clock ran out. I can't remember. It was 12 hours. How much time was left?
There was like 30. It was, I think, 32 seconds on the clock or something like that.
But what if they fumble?
Yeah.
And they recover. Well, guess what? Your opportunity to put the game away went by the boards because you have 12 men on the field and you did that intentionally. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. And the reason I'm not buying it is there are several scenarios where it backfires on you. And I just gave you two of them. And it didn't take me long to come up with two.
Yeah. But there were 22 seconds on the clock when this happened. So it ran off 12 seconds of clock time. Completely just ran off because of the penalty, and all of a sudden Will Howard was trying to get them to go, by the way. And that was the thing, as you could see on the broadcast afterwards, they were saying, like, he's telling his guys to get in position because he can see the clock running down. He's like, get there, and they're just not. Because they thought they had time, and it was just...
Right. But then...
it's inexcusable.
But look, he goes straight up the middle. Now, Drew does not have the time element to worry about in overtime. But Drew goes up the middle, centers the ball, poised, in control of everything that's going around in his surroundings, makes exactly the right play and made it look easy. Howard, who's been there and done it, it's not like he's never quarterbacked and won a Big 12 championship game. He has. All right. Misjudged the clock. He misjudged the clock. Right? He gets down there. Right? Okay. You can get it done. Nope. I mean, he misjudged it.
I would love to ask quarterbacks.
I also felt that in watching him play the game, he made some good short to medium accurate throws until the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, he didn't. Right, and I thought that was like in the fourth quarter he wasn't as sharp as I thought he was in the middle. I started watching from the middle of the second, so from the middle of the second through the third, I thought, man, he looks really sharp.
By the way, second half, Ohio State had 4 total drives. Oregon had 4 total drives. The first half, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 total drives in the game. Right. They cut that drive number in half in the second half because it was just a battle of attrition and fighting back and forth and running clock down.
Did Ohio State have 200 yards total in this game?
In terms of total stats,
well, Howard must have throwing the ball. They didn't run the ball.
Ohio State ran the ball for 141, and he passed for 326.
Right. So
Henderson had 53 of those yards, by the way.
So Genty had more yards rushing for Boise State than Ohio State did in the game.
We'll discuss Genty in a little bit as
I've
well.
never seen Genty play.
We'll talk about him in a minute.
I've never seen him play, so I've just heard about him. I've just never seen him play.
I got some time to watch him, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But just to kind of put a bow on this game, like I would love to ask a quarterback, like an Aller or a Howard in this case, do you have a clock in your head when you know you've got 6 seconds left? Like, do you put a mental clock in it where it's like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 go? At the end of 4, I've got to get down.
But again, Penn State practices all this stuff.
I know.
Yeah, they practice that. Now, does it mean that, especially in the preseason or something like that, like, hey guys, come on, right? But you're trying to ingrain situational football into their heads. Mike does the same thing in basketball, situational basketball. It's not always just, hey, let's line up and run plays. Like James will put them in situations, and this has been a constant. It's not like something he's added in over time. It's like no, he's always done this, and so and I'm sure Ryan Day and Chip Kelly do situational stuff all the time. I'm sure they do.
Oh yeah,
but you also have human beings running the play.
Yeah,
he made a mistake. He made a mistake.
Yeah,
he misjudged it. He misjudged it by about a half second, but he misjudged it. So Ohio State probably drummed into everybody situational football. This is how we handle it. This is what we do. And he did it, except he missed by a half second. That's what happens when you have 18 to 23-year-olds. They're going to make a slight error. In that case, it's a slight error in judgment.
It happens. Speaking of Ashton Jeanty, though, you haven't seen him play. I just want to discuss, firstly, the numbers he's put up so far this season, and then we'll discuss the play style he has. So far on the year, he has 126 carries, 1,248 yards, 17 touchdowns, including another one, a 18th one in the air as a reception. He's averaging just about 10 yards a carry right now.
I know he's had 2 games against Power 4 schools. In each game, he performed great, including Oregon, where I think he had 192.
Against Oregon, if I can pull up his game log, against Oregon, he had 25 carries, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I know. His lowest rushing game was against, who was that? Portland State. He had 11 carries, 127 yards. He was out by at the end of the second quarter. They took him out. They pulled him. They said, we're not going to let you run the rest of the game. He is putting up otherworldly numbers so far. He has had 3 games over 200 yards on the ground.
I think they've got a game this weekend, but then they have UNLV the weekend after that, I think.
Boise State, in terms of the schedule, it's UNLV is this coming week. They have a 25th, so they have a week off. So it's UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, Oregon State. So, not the craziest schedule in the world, but still not the easiest.
So it's a Friday night game.
It's a Friday night game on the 25th.
I'll get a chance to watch that when I'm in Madison.
It is 10:30, so it's going to be, 9:30 for you in Madison, I think?
What does it matter? Penn State's playing at 7:30 at night the next day. I think I can sleep in.
Yeah. But he is doing something that is, he's putting up otherworldly numbers.
Sure. Good
and
for
again,
him.
this is through 6 games. He's missed, I think, 5 quarters he has not played at all. They just have pulled him because, when you're putting up the numbers he is and you're doing what he is, they yank him. He has 6 games to go. So hypothetically, he's on pace right now to hit the record. He's on pace to crack the number of yards in one season.
Right.
And he running the ball, he's talked about it, and videos you've seen it. He stands almost straight up before he's the snap. He's just kind of standing there casually in the backfield. Right. And everyone's like, what is he doing? Why is he doing this? And he said it because he wants to get the ball and see where everyone is in the field as soon as he touches it and know exactly where the hole's going to be. And he has this uncanny ability to bounce off tackles, to see someone coming at him and say, what is the angle I can get where I can get downfield further? And he is just doing this against everyone. He did this, as you said, against Oregon. He's done this against all these teams in a way where it's him just putting he's imposing his will on other teams.
Sure.
And he right now, I know we don't want to fully talk about it, but he, as things stand, is apparently the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman. Do with that what you will. It's Boise State. But still, he is playing lights out. And it is really fun to watch. And he has a really cool story because also it's on the Smurf turf. And people love watching teams play on the Smurf turf.
I don't.
Okay. You don't like the Smurf turf, Steve?
Well, it has nothing to do with whether I like the Smurf turf or not. It's just on TV. It's
terrible.
Like after a while, it gets to be too much.
But it is very fun. It's fun to watch.
Like I saw the Eastern Washington game, and Eastern Washington plays on red turf. You're like, what the heck?
They have red. Coastal Carolina's got teal. Central Arkansas has purple and gray that switch every 5 yards.
Eastern Michigan is gray.
And Eastern Michigan is gray as well.
I actually saw Josh Allen for Wyoming play against Eastern Michigan on that turf.
Jeez.
I had a speaking engagement that night for the Penn State Club of Michigan, and it was at their convocation center. So I went out when it was over with. I watched the game. Then I went back to the hotel.
Not bad. Well, Genty right now is putting up some otherworldly yards. He's playing really well. And he's putting people on notice because even when they know he's coming at them, he's still putting up 200 yards against teams. Like,
yeah, he's a good player. I mean, again, I haven't seen. I've never. Look. I may have seen like a Boise State game last year or something. I I don't remember him at all. And to be honest with you, he looks like he's a. You read about him, and it seems like he's a heck of a running back.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to actually seeing him play, because I just haven't seen him play.
As things stand, he is currently going to be top 3 all-time rushing yards in a season. He's currently in that range. Can he get to Barry Sanders' number of 26-28? That's to be determined. But he's on pace to get to Kevin Smith, Melvin Gordon territory, which if you get there, it doesn't matter. You have an increntible season on your hands.
Did I ever tell you my Barry Sanders story?
I've never heard your Barry Sanders story, no.
Okay. I'm doing basketball at Wyoming, and they kind of messed around with the schedule. It was supposed to be back-to-back night games, and Penn State played the late game with Southern Illinois. They lose the game in overtime, where Penn State had a 3-point lead, and a guy banked in a 3-point shot to send it overtime. They lose. Well, they informed everybody that Penn State was going to play Gonzaga the next day. And instead of playing in the night, because of the Holiday Bowl, they're going to play at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This is Mountain Time. Okay, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, because they didn't want Wyoming's basketball game to be opposite the Wyoming Holiday Bowl football game. So
makes sense.
The Wyoming broadcast asked me to come on at halftime because they're excited about the Holiday Bowl. I get it. And they said, hey, you're with Penn State football. I said, yeah. So I do it. So they asked me, so what do you think about tonight's game? I said, I don't have a good. I said, do you want an honest answer? I said, yeah, I don't think. I said, it's going to be a tough night. I said, I think Barry Sanders could get 5 touchdowns and run for over 300 yards. They went, oh, no. 322, 5 touchdowns. Thank you very much. Let's go back to the hotel. We're done. Steve
Jones, the prophet.
No, it was a bad matchup for them. It wasn't really a stretch. To
the next thing I want to bring up real quick in terms of college football is Cam Rising. It has been announced is out for the season. So he is now out for Utah. They also lost to Arizona State in a tough game. So
I watched some of that game, and let me just say about Cam Rising. What makes Cam Rising an excellent college quarterback is he has guts. And he'll pull the ball down, and he'll get you the extra yards. He'll pull the ball down, make a play. He'll make a big pass play. He'll get belted and still make the pass play, and we're like that. I'm watching the Arizona State game. And you could see that there was no inclination to run, with the knees and everything else that's happened to him. And you felt like it took something away from the Utah offense, because now Captain Guts, that's exactly what he is. He is a gutty man. I mean, I'll say this, when getting ready for the Rose Bowl, and I watched 4 Utah games. I'm sitting there going, man, that guy is a fun dude to watch. He is, man, he's got guts. But it wasn't there at Arizona State. You could kind of, He wasn't a shell of himself, but it wasn't the same guy I saw 2 years ago. So I was not surprised when I heard he was going to be out for the rest of the year.
So he is now out for the season. Other games that went down in college football, just to go through all the scores, if you want to stop at any point, go for it. Texas and the Red River rivalry, 34-3 over Oklahoma. They just kind of did Texas stuff and won. Georgia beat Mississippi State 41-31.
Georgia has Texas this week.
That could be big.
Right? Well, no, for Georgia, this is going to be shocking. They actually have to play a road game. So I'm like, oh, okay. They did play at Alabama.
Yeah. But they have this is a big game for them because this will do a lot.
In the end, Texas has been in the conference one season. Georgia will play a game there. Texas A&M has been in for 13 years. They've never played a game there.
Do with that what you will, people out there listening to this show.
The most bizarre conference in the world.
As you mentioned, this game is going to happen, and this is going to be really interesting for a lot of reasons in terms of seeding, and also the SEC championship game is going to kind of be decided by this game for a chunk of it.
Well, here's the other part, though. Let's not discount this part. Okay. Two lost teams going to get in. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. But if Georgia doesn't win this game, that's their second loss.
Yeah.
All right. And that's why, because people, I think, are forgetting they lost to Alabama.
They lost to Bama. So
it's an interesting dynamic to all of this.
Well, they're sitting here with one loss playing Texas.
And again, two lost teams are going to get in. So please, I'm not saying they won't get in.
But it's going to get really interesting.
But it becomes then for them, in my opinion, a must-win every week the rest of the season for them if they fall into that two-loss category.
By the way, as this is happening, after Alabama loses to Vanderbilt, they almost lost to South Carolina, 27-25.
They didn't play well.
They didn't play well at all. They won the game late.
I watched a little bit of that. I think in the press box I watched a little bit of that. It was like, what are they doing here?
They eked it out.
South Carolina had a chance to win.
They did. So they eked it out. The
game was in Tuscaloosa. The game was not in Columbia.
And by the way, speaking of games this week, the current 8th best team in the nation, also 5-1 in the SEC, Tennessee, has Alabama at home.
It's the third Saturday in October, so that's why.
That game is going to go on at the same time. We've got Texas and Georgia. This is a huge week for the SEC because you've now got all 4 of these teams.
Right.
Texas has no loss, and the other 3 each have 1 loss. This will decide a lot going forward and put pressure on certain programs really hard going in the future. Because of what happens if Texas loses, what happens if Bama, Tennessee, all of these teams.
Texas is in a good spot right now because they've negotiated the first half of the season, right? And they've been winning. If they were to absorb a loss, they can absorb a loss. The team that loses that game, okay, so let's go both games. If Georgia, and of course one of the 2, Alabama or Tennessee, are going to lose.
Whichever one, yeah.
Okay, are going to fall into the 2-loss category. Again, 2 lost teams are still in the playoff picture without question. But a 3-loss team is not.
Yes.
Okay, and that is where now every week is going to be a playoff game. If Georgia loses, and the loser of Alabama-Tennessee will be in that same category.
And right now, the team that's currently feeling that 2-loss pressure is Ole Miss, who just lost to LSU. They're sitting here, and Jackson Dart said it after the game. He's like, it is now must-win every single game territory for them. They cannot lose. And by the way, they're in the conference. In terms of games they have left, they have Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State. That Georgia game is going to be big for them. If they go in and they lose, they're done completely out of the playoff.
Right.
If they're currently on the bubble, I would probably say at best right now. I don't remember exactly what the rankings are this week. Right. They're sitting on the bubble. And then you've got LSU, who's got games against Arkansas this week where they're going into Arkansas, which is a huge game because Arkansas has shown they can beat really good teams.
Right. I think that's the boot game.
That's going to be there. Then they're at Texas A&M, who's a good football team, and they have Alabama at home. That is a very big 3 weeks for LSU. LSU could upset a lot of this because they're 5-1 as well.
Right.
Like you are sitting here.
And ironically, who's their 1 loss?
Who?
USC.
So you're sitting here with all of these games in the SEC. All of a sudden, pretty much every game matters at this point for all these ranked teams. And they're all 5-1, bar Ole Miss, who's 5-2. But all of these games are going to matter. All of them. Every single one. And that is the reason why this realignment has happened. Because now you're at a point where you're halfway into the season, but all 4 games of these ranked teams this week and every single week moving forward will matter for everybody. Because it's going to decide who gets in. You could end with most of these teams having 2 losses, and then it opens the door, because what if Penn State only has 1 loss? And what if Ohio State has 1 loss? And what if Oregon has 1 loss? They're going to get more, like, it's going to open the door for a lot.
Well, let's get into this part of it, though. All right. Next up will be Wisconsin.
Yes.
Wisconsin will play Northwestern this weekend. Wisconsin has scored 91 points in the last 2 games. No offense, did not see that coming with Braden Locke at quarterback, but he threw for 240 against Rutgers. Look, Rutgers is not built to be a come-from-behind team. They are built to be a front-running team.
And just have Kyle Monangai run it down your throat for a full game.
Monangai, Calic Manis is expected to do a good job within the scope of the offense, not make mistakes. When Wisconsin got up on them 14-0 at halftime, I looked at Jack. I said, Rutgers can't come back from that. Walker had a big day running the ball. Let's give Locke a lot of credit, because when Tyler Van Dyke went down against Alabama, you felt like, because they are not the 3 yards in a cloud of AstroTurf pellets anymore, okay? Field turf pellets. They run the air raid offense now. Right? It's different. And you kind of wonder that, it really kind of fit Tyler Van Dyke and the whole deal. Right? Locke was the backup last year. He's still the backup now. There's a lot of talk that Locke fought him tooth and nail to get, and then Van Dyke won the job. Okay. Let's give Locke credit. Locke has played really well. I thought the first half against USC, for the most part, they played pretty well. The second half, USC controlled them and won the game. But then they've come right back. Now, Purdue was a get-well game, and they played great. And then they go on the road to Rutgers, and Rutgers normally plays really well at home. Now, Rutgers was coming off a loss, too, to Nebraska. I don't think that helped. But Wisconsin, I think Wisconsin scored in their opening drive of the game, if I recall. And that's not the spot where Rutgers is used to playing from. Rutgers needs to be the front-running team to win. Wisconsin made sure in that game that Rutgers was never the front-running team. And they played a great game all the way through. So to their credit, they've been playing their best football right now. So everybody wants to jump ahead. I'm not saying you're jumping ahead. But that's why in life I don't jump ahead. Okay, right? I just go, okay, what's the next one? What's next? Doesn't mean I don't do some things
thinking ahead.
Well, it doesn't mean I don't do some things in a bye week to think ahead to make my job easier for the stretch run, because I'm going to have both basketball and football at the same time. So I'll do some stuff ahead personnel-wise on other teams, just so I have it and it's there and it gives me a head start based on what I did in the spring. But I've already started working on the Wisconsin stuff. They do a lot of really good things. They do a lot of really good things. And they're a good team. It's going to be a night game.
7:30 in Camp Randall is going to be that is going to be, I was talking earlier with someone, a very big 3-week stretch for Penn State.
Sure it is.
Because you have night in Camp Randall, you then have Ohio State here, and then you have the whiteout against Washington.
Right.
That is regardless of what anyone thinks the Washington game, it is a really big 3-week stretch.
Let me tell you about Washington for a moment. Will Rogers, first of all, is a very good quarterback. So let's not pretend he's not, because he is. Coleman is a terrific running back. Man, do I like. Coleman is really good. They run a really nice pro-style offense. Rogers fits it very well. Their problem has been offensively in the red zone and finishing drives and getting touchdowns. And Grady Gross, their kicker, who made some big kicks for them last year, has has been up and down. He's been a little up and down. Right? You can't count on that every game, but he's been a little up and down to this point. And that's hurt them in a couple of games, including the Rutgers game.
And they've got an interesting next few weeks. They are at Indiana, home against USC, here in Happy Valley, home to UCLA, and then on the road to Oregon. So they've got a jumping back and forth next few weeks. They are off this week, similar to Penn State, but it is going to be a very big 3-week stretch for this Nittany Lion team. I was excluding the bye week.
Sure.
But it's just the 3-game stretch coming up. It's going to be big because going into Camp Randall is going to be a tough environment, just like going into USC was. It was never going to be an easy game. You then go into Camp Randall for a night game against Wisconsin, who wants to pull off the upset. They want nothing more than to spoil this season for the Nittany Lions.
Sure.
And then you get to look ahead to Ohio State a week later, here at home, probably going to be an earlier kickoff game. And then all of a sudden, you then have the whiteout coming up the week afterwards. That is a big 3 weeks.
Sure
and if any Nittany Lion fan says they aren't thinking about all of it, they're lying.
Oh, no. This is the point I make all the time when it comes to the fans. It's very simple. Fans are entitled to think any way they want.
Yeah.
Okay, they're entitled to think any way they want. They want to jump ahead to the whiteout game. They want to jump ahead to what? You're a fan. Of course, you're thinking about all these other things. When you do what I do, and what Jack Ham does, which is then also an offshoot of what James Franklin and his staff and his players do, they can't do that.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
That's why he preaches 1-0.
Right.
He preaches that week.
Right. For example, I remember going to UCLA. Somebody said, "What do you think about the USC game?" I said, "I'm not broadcasting the USC game this week." I mean, do I have some thoughts? Sure. But, I think it's better to stay for me in the moment because I've done a lot of games in my career. I've seen great moments and I've seen pitfalls. That's why you just worry about, what's in front of you. Now, do I know something about the next game? Because, in the post-game show, I do have to talk about the next game. Right? But when it comes to going into the game or getting ready for the game, it's the only game that week I can broadcast.
That it is. And we'll talk more things tomorrow here on the show because there is a lot we have not discussed yet, including the possibilities of a Subway Series, World Series, which gets me both excited and nervous. But that'll be for tomorrow, Steve.
I'm not excited or nervous about either one of them.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on